Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is mere days away, so today we're doing like Wolverine and jumping back in time to take a look at X-Men, Days of Future Past. As the X-Men fight a war for the survival of their species in the far future, Wolverine is sent back in time in a desperate effort to change the past with the help of their younger selves so they may save their future. Before I properly start today with my review for X-Men Days of Future Past, let me know your thoughts on this film down in the comments below. Start the conversation about it. That's the most important part. And as I said in the intro, I'm reviewing every single X-Men movie ahead of Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. You can check all those reviews out right up here on this playlist. And if you love movies and TV, if you love these X-Men reviews, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. After the reboot of the franchise went so surprisingly well with First Class, fans rejoiced when we all learned that this movie would be adapting one of the greatest X-Men stories ever told in the comics. Not only that, it was going to use the cast from the new established reboot franchise without actually being a reboot, and then the original franchise, bringing back Halle Berry, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, the proverbial leader of that cast. And it was going to do something unimaginable, something at the time that was very out there by 2014 comic book movie standards, and it also brought back Bryan Singer. Like I said before, we're going to talk about Bryan Singer in these videos as a director, not as a human being. That has been very well established what we all think of him. And for a film with such massive, epic proportions, not only does Bryan Singer return, we also bring back John Ottman, and along with him, his rousing score and theme for the X-Men movies. The theme that was first presented in X2, it was discarded for some reason in The Last Stand. Harry Jackman does his own thing in First Class, which I respect, but this, for the quintessential X-Men movie, is the quintessential X-Men theme when it comes to the films. Ottman understands the action extravaganza spectacle. He's a great pairing with Singer because he also understands the more intimate, delicate character moments. He allows the story to be told. He enhances it with his score. It's just one of my favorite movie themes and movie scores that thankfully he kept coming back for in this franchise, at least for one more movie. But it feels poetic to, as we gather the original cast with the new cast, the original cast's return and all, we also bring back the thing that became the recognizable music for X-Men movies. And once again, an X-Men movie delivers a killer opening that this time establishes the Sentinels as menacing threats. The cold open of the film, the narration by Patrick Stewart's Professor X, joined by the action sequence of the last line of defense from the X-Men battling the Sentinels and losing in incredibly gruesome ways, illustrates the desperation of our heroes and the world they live in. With the massacre that we witness of fan-favorite characters and new ones, Singer establishes this sense of danger from the beginning. And so we recognize as an audience how dangerous it will be if Trask gets the approval he seeks throughout the film. It's a superbly effective way of generating this sense of dread from the start, while delivering great action as well. It also gives our heroes this sort of deadline, so you know exactly what they must stop from the beginning. It creates a sense of danger again, and it makes us understand the stakes, both proverbial for the future that our heroes find themselves in, but also literal on the battlefield as we eventually see the fight against the Sentinels both in the past, in the 70s, and in this future timeline. And where First Class was this sophisticated 60s spy thriller, X-Men Days of Future Past for its first half at least, feels like a groovy 70s style heist movie with all the aesthetics and visuals that you want in a 70s style film. The prison break sequence, for instance, is imbued with Singer's shot-to-shot dynamic and relentless energy. It is vibrant to watch from shot to shot, moment to moment, and it has naturally become a highlight from the film, particularly the slow-mo moment with Quicksilver running around on the walls, positioning everyone to not take the bullets and the guards to take each other out is just mwah, chef's kiss. Plus, it's also a time travel movie, which you guys know I'm a sucker for. Time travel is kind of my favorite thing in movies, and it's a Terminator-style one at that, where in the pursuit of saving an entire species, in this case mutants, it has inadvertently created this dark, desolate future where an entire species is facing extinction. It's also a war movie in a lot of ways. This is a lot of why I love this film, because it's so many things at the same time and it blends all of those really well. Because while Vietnam is happening in the background, there's this civil war brewing amongst mutants as they begin to realize they have to choose a side if they want to survive. Sides and paths that are represented by Charles Xavier and Eric Lencher. So once again, we position these characters, both their past selves and their future selves, as these representatives of the possible futures for their entire species. And that's in great part why I love Days of Future Past so much. It is a high-octane, time-traveling blockbuster that delivers all the stellar action and spectacle one could want, but at its core, it's a deep, moving story about how hate begets hate, fear begets fear. It goes back to that generational theme that was present in First Class. How the actions and the paths Xavier and Magneto took molded, shaped mutant kind and its possible future. For example, the Kennedy assassination. There's such a great setup with that of Magneto interfered in that. He killed Kennedy, but eventually we find out he was trying to save him, because Kennedy was a mutant. So once again, they're at the center of this. They're the crucible that will dictate the future of mankind. It's that fractured relationship that keeps getting damaged throughout this film, but also built back up at the same time. And that's what Bryan Singer gives to this film. With his return, so returns the great balance between blockbuster spectacle but also deep story and thematic resonance. He brings back character depth and rich interpersonal dynamics that have always elevated these stories, and the film has always hit a personal chord to me in the way that it explores the theme of depression, of when all seems lost, to hold on to hope, to reach out, of how there's always a way to bounce back for us and for others. Beautifully captured with the character of Charles Xavier, with James McAvoy's performance, and the resentment between Charles and Eric that caused this depression continues to play a great, profound part in the story. We see the damage they've done to one another counterbalanced with the respect they still carry for each other on an internal level, but on an exterior level, we see how that has affected the next generation of mutants. The young ones they were supposed to protect, to save, to guide to a brighter future together. The scene on the plane, for instance, is brilliant in showcasing that, in exploring that seething resentment that they're carrying inside for one another. We explore the pain Charles feels and has hidden away from, eventually causing him to lose his way, while Eric has used that pain to fuel him in his constant pursuit of his goal by any means necessary, which eventually in this film leads him to try and murder Mystique for the better future of mutant kind as a whole. And it's this deep, constant damage of their trust in one another that not only damages that friendship, but costs those around them, while poetically enough, it leads them to follow the same arc in this film. And that's the arc of emerging from the shadows and be those proverbial guiding lights for the future of their kind. There's real power in that. How these characters kind of lost their way through this film, but in their contrasting ideologies, they still end up in the place where they should be, while they still hold on to those core beliefs that make them who they are, in their similarities, but also in the big contrasting differences. And McAvoy is excellent here. Much like I said, Fassbender delivered his best performance in this entire franchise in First Class. This is McAvoy's best for me. Just in the scene where he chooses not to take the antidote, there's this beautiful moment between him and Hank where Charles makes the choice to once again become that mentor that will aid others like he once promised to be. And Nicholas Hoult also has a great part to play here. He has a ton of great action scenes. I love the look of the Beast in here. This to me, and what he kept throughout the rest of this franchise, is the definitive look of Beast for me. It's the look I prefer. But there's this sort of arc for himself as well, where he's taking care of Charles, but Charles was supposed to take care of him. One of my favorite scenes, though, is when Charles goes into Wolverine's mind and eventually meets his future self. And we have the scene between James McAvoy and Patrick Stewart. And it really hits the emotional chords here. I always tear up in this scene. It's a rousing meeting of the two characters where Xavier rallies himself back onto the right path. There's real power to me, where I get shivers down my spine of the hopeless realizing he is the only hope for his kind. And I feel like I haven't talked enough about Michael Fassbender in this film. He is just as good as everyone else. I love Eric in this film. I love how he constantly feels desperate, like he has no other way other than following his extremist point of view. This film also gives us the best live action Magneto suit to me, and there's immense satisfaction in that third act where the weapons created to destroy his kind, he gets to use them as his army. Knowing that extremist point of view that we just talked about creates absolutely unbridled tension. The editing is also excellent throughout, particularly in this third act. It sings as Singer cuts back and forth between past and future. We allow both versions of Magneto in Fassbender and McKellen to shine. We see ultimately how Eric's actions in the 70s to save his kind are ultimately in the future dooming not only his kind, but himself. It's that desperate hour kind of editing that I really love. But it also shows us that he ultimately understood what Wolverine and Charles were trying to say, as he has this talk, he has this ultimatum delivered to humans that if they step over the line, Magneto knows how to deal with them, and converges all those powerful arcs of Charles, of Mystique, where she ultimately has to make a choice. The story also smartly positions Mystique at the center of the Charles and Eric conflict. She's on this personal mission to save mutants from governmental experiments. She knows what Trask is doing, or at least what he's trying to achieve, and so those two are pitted directly against one another, and so she becomes this generational crucible who has witnessed the mistakes and faults of both the paths that Charles and Eric took. She's a product of both their teachings and ideologies. And so she shares a lot of their insecurities and fears, being a representative of how Charles failed to save Eric. The path Eric took in First Class of giving into that fear, to that hate, to that pain, Mystique is going down that exact same path in Days of Future Past. But poetically enough, she ultimately chooses to give into hope and not fear, the way her mentor and brother ultimately found himself again, regained his hope, and was able to instruct that into her. And I think Jennifer Lawrence does a phenomenal job here. This is her best performance in the franchise. She's obviously at the center of it. She obviously does a stellar job in the action sequences, but dramatically as well. Another character that gets a lot of time to shine is Wolverine. First of all and foremost, it's just fun to see him as this bridge that connects both the casts. The film does a great job of making the case for why he's the one going back in time, because of his healing power, and the film just then positions him in these dangerous situations where his mind is fracturing while he's being sent back in time, when he sees Stryker and begins having the nightmares that his 70s self is not supposed to be. It's just really great to have this kind of reverse arc for him, where he needs to be the guiding light for Xavier, but also kind of fulfills the arc he was having in the original trilogy, where he was slowly and by the end surely becoming a teacher for younger mutants. And when we come to the fixed future at the end, where we get to see Kelsey Grammer's Beast and Halle Berry and everyone back at the school, including Jean and Cyclops, and Xavier has that quick conversation with Logan. He now has done for Xavier what Xavier once did for him, and it's just a beautiful final scene. It's really stirs up those emotions, and it feels earned. You just find real serenity, and honestly, at points it feels like where the franchise should have ended. X-Men Days of Future Past is the best kind of cinematic blockbuster. Using time travel to bind the two sagas together delivers great pathos for both its iconic casts. The stellar action and spectacle are there, but only to pay off the resonant character work, complex story, and thematic maturity. I'm giving X-Men Days of Future Past an A+. But those are only my thoughts on X-Men Days of Future Past. I've gushed enough about this film. Let me know your thoughts on it down there in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, for joining these X-Men reviews, and if you want to check any of the other ones out, they're right up here. I'll be back very soon with reviews for Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix to finish it all off, and of course the original Doctor Strange before Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Remember that if you like what you saw here, you can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any future X-Men reviews or conversation on your favorite movies and TV. Thank you so much once more. Thank you to my channel members, and until the next one, love each other and love the movies.